building concerns. And so we are hard at work, making sure not only that we are working together, but most importantly, that we're listening to your concerns and questions and responding to them accordingly. Our county, state, and federal partners are all here tonight, and I want to once again thank them all for joining us. Included among our illustrious guests tonight are Cal OES Assistant Director of Recovery Operations, Eli Owen, Wes Minderman, Cal EPA Supervising Waste Managing Engineer, Jennifer Hogan, Cal EPA Deputy Director for Disaster Debris Recovery Ops, U.S. Army Corps Colonel Eric Swenson, LA County Public Health Chief Medical Advisor Dr. Nicole Quick, LA County Sheriff Captain Jen Situ, Caltrans District 7 Katie Masick, FEMA, Cal EPA, Cal Recycle, a local enforcement agency, LA Regional Water Board, Insurance Commissioner, LA County Public Works. There is a whole lot of expertise packed into tonight's agenda, and I want to thank you all once again. This is to answer all of your questions. These town halls are scheduled for Wednesdays at 6 p.m. to make sure that you are getting the information that you need regarding recovery in your community. Now I want to turn it over to Eli Owen, Wes Minderman, and Jennifer Hogan to present on landfill debris oversight.
Thank you, Supervisor. Good evening. My name is Eli Owen, and I serve as the Deputy State Coordinating Officer for the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, helping coordinate recovery in Pasadena at our joint field office. Thank you for the invitation to join today's town hall. I also want to thank the survivors in the community for allowing us to be part of their recovery process. We understand what everyone is going through is not easy. This is a difficult time, and our hearts go out to you. And I want to reiterate, you will not go through recovery or the rebuilding process alone. We will go through and get through this together. Cal OES and many other agencies are in this with you to guide you and support you. All hands are on deck. There's a whole of government approach, and we are working on many fronts in partnership with local, state, and federal partners on a massive recovery operation. These efforts are guided by who we serve, those who were affected by the fires directly and indirectly. Your health and safety is our top priority, and we are here with you and think of you, the survivors and community, in all we do. On behalf of the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, thank you for the opportunity to be here and for your partnership. Again, we're in this with you. One broader reference point I'd like to underscore that during emergencies and disasters, Cal OES works closely with federal, state, and local partners to coordinate and support the broader wildfire response and recovery efforts. We work together with agencies from all levels of government in their roles in the collective recovery process, supporting the communities and survivors. Cal OES is all hands on deck and is committed to helping the community and survivors rebuild as safely and quickly as possible. We are focused on our mission, and we will continue to work to bring together our federal, state, and local partners while coordinating the broader effort in support of you, our community. For example, in the debris removal efforts for the LA fires here, FEMA, in support of the state through the Major Disaster Declaration, we tasked USACE and US EPA as the lead agencies for the two separate phases of the debris removal program. We also want to call to action and encourage all homeowners to take advantage of Phase 2 debris removal by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and opt in by submitting their right of entry form before, ideally, the March 31st deadline. Information and resources are available online and in person. Please visit california.ca.gov/LA Fires for resources and details on where to apply online for services, to submit the right of entry form, and where to find your nearest disaster recovery center for in-person assistance. My team will put in the chat those links. On the debris removal front for phases 1 and 2, the governor tasked FEMA to task U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for debris removal, as I said. Phase 1 is the identification and removal of household cleaning products, barbecue propane tanks, and other materials, which is being led, again, by U.S. EPA. In the Phase 2, it's the full-scale removal of structural remains and ash in the impacted areas, which will be led by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. One of the first steps to recovery is debris removal. Governor Newsom has accelerated debris removal to jumpstart recovery and move faster than ever before. To achieve this, our highest priority is a safe, effective, and efficient removal of debris for both impacted areas. To do this, we're prioritizing health and environmental protection in our joint efforts, underscoring California's dedication to protect public health and the environment during wildfire recovery. Time and time again, the Army Corps and our state partners have successfully and safely cleared fire debris and then transported it to appropriate facilities, including after the Woolsey fire and after fires that happen around the region. The faster that we act, the quicker we are able to prevent harmful substances from entering our waterways and beaches and to protect public health. Using strict guidelines, all of our operations are conducted under rigorous safety and environmental protocols with oversight from regulatory agencies such as the EPA, Cal EPA, and local authorities. With regards to safeguards, the measures have been implemented to ensure there are no adverse impacts on the surrounding community or natural environment. With regard to site suitability, the landfills that are used must be properly permitted and capable of handling the specific types of materials generated in a fire, whether it be a home fire, restaurant fire, or wildfire. With regard to regulatory compliance, decisions are guided by strict compliance with US EPA, Cal EPA, Cal Recycle, and local regulations. Agencies coordinate closely to ensure proper waste handling, containment, and disposal practices. Wes Minderman, the Chief of Engineering Support at Cal Recycle, is here to answer any of those questions about the state's oversight and role in that area. With regard to safe handling of ash, specialized equipment and protective measures are used to safely manage and transport ash to prevent exposure to workers and nearby residents, which has been done for decades, including all wildfires throughout the state. And lastly, with regard to disposal protocols, all ash and debris are transported to approved landfills or treatment facilities that can handle the materials, ensuring proper disposal according to federal and state regulations. These protocols have protected communities grappling with fires that happen more often and the destructive wildfires we have seen more and more. Thank you for letting me provide opening remarks. And with that, I will turn to Mr. Wes Minderman, Chief of Engineering Support with Cal Recycle. Thank you.
Thanks, Eli, for that introduction. And thank you, Supervisor, for having us here tonight. We understand, the concerns of your constituents and of the elected officials regarding the safety of yourself and your families and all of the survivors. And we appreciate the chance to explain how landfills are regulated and how disaster debris disposal occurs. As Eli mentioned, I'm Wes Minderman. I'm the Chief of the Engineering Support Branch here at Cal Recycle. I've been here at Cal Recycle for over 33 years. I've been involved in disaster debris removal programs throughout the state through 2007, served in roles in operations, planning, finance as a liaison officer, and I'm intimately familiar with how those operations have been conducted in the past and am familiar with how this operation is being conducted today. I want to get started, and this presentation will just be 5 or 6 minutes because I know you have a lot of questions and I want to get an opportunity for people to ask them. I just want to start briefly with just kind of an overview of state solid waste law. Since the implementation of what we call modern solid waste law in 1989, there was an acknowledgement that there was a need of statewide regulations for the protection of public health and safety and the environment, and the consistent application of those regulations. And by the way, those regulations are considered the most protective and stringent in the United States, but also that these laws should be implemented and enforced by local or regional agencies. And this was primarily because these important facilities, the solid waste disposal facilities, were located in the communities that they served. And so there was, from the legislature to the various administrations, a real emphasis that local agencies should be responsible for ensuring that these facilities meet these state requirements and should be answerable to their local constituents. Having said that, you're going to hear me say a couple things tonight as I refer to agencies as the local enforcement agency or as the Regional Water Quality Control Board. It's complicated. I'm going to try and make it as simple as I can, and so we can understand what's happening here as part of this disaster debris removal program. First question I understand is where will the debris go? And so I don't want to go into the details of the various phases. We have the agencies here tonight that are responsible for implementing that, and they'll answer those questions. But phase one is household hazardous waste and asbestos. Those are going to go to properly permitted facilities for hazardous waste and for asbestos. Phase two is the heavy lift phase, the actual ash and debris removal. There's other parts of that waste stream that I'm not going to talk about tonight, like concrete, metal, and vehicles. We're going to focus on ash and debris because that's the majority of it. And I believe that's what everybody's concerned about. Where is it going to go and how are we going to handle it? You know, in handling these disasters, there's just a recognition that the magnitude of the disaster and the speedy recovery requires a regional response. No city, no county, even a state can't really go it alone. When we've looked at operations in other areas and even this operation for disposal options, things that have been looked at are rail haul out of state, long hauling to other regions or other parts of the state, but it has been found to be safer and more efficient in terms of handling, transporting, transferring, and disposal of that waste to dispose of it at landfills as close to the affected areas as possible. And when I say landfills, landfills that are properly permitted and equipped and monitored to handle this debris. Who regulates landfills in California? And this is where it gets a little complicated. But in California, there are different agencies that work together to monitor a facility. There is the local enforcement agency. In LA County, it is the LA County Department of Public Health, which is a certified local enforcement agency by CalRecycle. They enforce the state laws. They permit the landfill. They inspect the landfill. CalRecycle provides support and oversight in that to make sure that the laws and rules are enforced consistently and to help them do their job more effectively. There's the Regional Water Board with assistance from the State Water Board, and in LA it's the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board that does that. They issue what we call waste discharge requirements that are the actual permit that governs how the landfill operates, how it is constructed, and how it protects water quality. There's also the local air pollution control district. In the case of LA, it's the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which issues permits to operate for specific devices or facilities on the landfill, and they do that. There's also the local land use and planning agency, which issues the conditional use permit that governs the land use and how a landfill can operate on that specific property in that jurisdiction. I'm going to focus on the first three. I'm not going to go into the complicated nature of land use planning and conditional use permit. I just want to note it that's there for just effect. How do we permit the waste to go to specific facilities? And in California, there's two agencies that determine waste classification and what facilities can handle waste. One is the Department of Toxic Substances Control. I just mentioned that for Class 1 and hazardous waste facilities. The other primary one is the Regional Water Quality Control Board and the State Water Control Board. They're the ones who really classify the waste and determine if a facility is constructed properly and properly permitted to handle a type of waste. With respect to disaster-related debris, the State Water Board has issued a general order back in February of 2020 that pertains statewide how disaster-related debris is handled and what facilities it can go to. This was done by the State Water Board to provide consistency because on previous disasters, each of the regional boards had tried to do it individually. They did a great job on it, but it was cumbersome and time-consuming, and the State Water Board decided to do these the general waste discharge requirements for disaster-related debris. As I mentioned, it was adopted in February 2020. It was adopted through a public process. there was input from the public, there was input from the regulatory agencies, there was input from the emergency response agencies, and there was input from the local governments when the State Water Board adopted those waste discharge requirements. And that's really the document that says what facility can take what waste and under what very specific conditions it can be taken, how it is handled, what specific cells it has to go into. And when I say cells, that's like a waste management unit, how the design is to ensure that that waste is handled safely and disposed of safely. So the State Water Board issues that. The Regional Water Quality Control Board is the one that oversees oversees the implementation of that at the regional level and at the landfill level to ensure that the landfill complies with all those requirements issued by the State Water Board. So that's the primary mechanism when we're talking about how do we determine which landfills can take this. That is the very prescriptive method that says these are the landfills based on a regional basis that can take this debris. With respect to the local enforcement agency, they do have a solid waste facility permit that governs how a landfill operates here in California. That permit is issued by the LEA. There is oversight of that issuance and concurrence by Cal Recycle. And it governs just the day-to-day, but includes the day-to-day operations of the landfill, how things are done, hours to operate, tonnage limits, vehicles. Again, that permit is concurred with by Cal Recycle. And then going into the Air Quality Management District, as I mentioned before, they issue specific permits for specific operations regarding emissions at the landfill. And those permits to operate can cover the landfill gas collection system and other aspects that involve at the landfill. Other questions that I believe you had that you wanted me to answer. I answered which agencies regulate landfills. There's been some discussion earlier about emergency waivers. And I know there's a concern about emergency waivers when you hear that term, and I think it's a misnomer. It's a mechanism for the local enforcement agency to change specific conditions on the solid waste facility permit with respect to how a facility operates during an emergency. And California has many emergencies. We have floods, earthquakes, we have animal mortality events, and we have wildfires, obviously. And so when we talk about emergency waivers, we talk about a very, very specific thing, very limited to certain conditions related to hours of operation. A landfill may ask for an emergency waiver to extend their hours to take more debris and to handle the municipal solid waste that's coming in. Vehicle counts, daily tonnage, and the LEA can grant those waivers for a specific amount of time and for just those specific things to enable the landfill to take debris from a disaster area. Cal Recycle reviews those waivers for consistency with respect to state laws and standards. We have the authority to rescind those, but there is an oversight rule for Cal Recycle with respect to those emergency waivers.
Wes, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump into some of the questions.
Sure.
I'm sure you're prepared for some of the questions that will be coming.
Okay.
I know that we have at least a couple of people who have to leave a little bit early, so I want to get some of these PCH questions answered, and then we'll come back if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. And if there are questions about agencies that I talked about, we have those representatives here, and I may be deferring to them to answer the specifics.
Yes, that's going to be incredibly helpful. I'm very grateful. Thank you for that very thorough explanation. Okay, I know we want to touch on some PCH questions because we have some hopefully good news with regard to the PCH. So first, I want to start with: is the PCH now open? Please explain what the reopening is as of this evening. I'm going to start with Captain C2 and Caltrans.
I can start unless Captain C2 would like to. Yeah, so obviously Caltrans and our partner agencies are sensitive to the impact this closure has had on the communities of Santa Monica and Los Angeles and Malibu. We know this hasn't been easy But the combination of the extensive damage from the Palisades fire and subsequent storms and flooding is an extraordinary situation, and it required extraordinary circumstances and a lot of interagency coordination. So fortunately, as Supervisor Horvath alluded to, we do have some good news to share. The PCH at this moment tonight is not open, but it will be opening at 6 a.m. tomorrow, Thursday, February 20th. With some restrictions. So we're expanding the soft closure to residents of Palisades and Malibu, essential businesses, so their workers and their owners, and school bus traffic can come in. So that will follow similar traffic restrictions. If you remember those from when we had them in place when we briefly reopened the Pacific Coast Highway in early February. It'll be reduced to one lane in each direction with a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit between Chautauqua Boulevard in Pacific Palisades and Carbon Beach Terrace in Malibu. Signalized intersections are all going to be on flashing red and should be treated as a four-way stop. There is no parking, no stopping, and no pedestrians allowed in the work zone, and we're asking vehicles not to pass one another in the work zone as well. I have more, but
This is limited to Palisades residents, Malibu residents, and unincorporated area residents as well.
Yeah, any residents who have been impacted by the fires are able to get through.
Great. Captain C2, anything you want to add, or shall I go to the next one? All right, I'm going to go to the next one. Next question is, will I need a pass to access certain neighborhoods? If so, where can I get one? What forms of proof will I need to get the pass in order to be accepted?
I would defer that to Captain C2. If he has an answer, Caltrans is not making a determination on which neighborhoods are allowed in or how to access them. Our rule is simply allowing residents and businesses.
Yeah, I know Captain C2 has been working on that in coordination with the city of Los Angeles and our team. Captain C2, are you able to unmute? Okay, we'll come back to that question. How is everyone being notified of this change? Is there a central place where people can get information about the PCH reopening and if it's going to close again?
So the fastest way to get information is probably on Caltrans District 7's Instagram and Twitter or X pages. So I can link those. I'll send those links over when I finish speaking. And then we also have on our website, we put our news releases up there as well. So that's where you can get it from us. And then we will rely on our partners to amplify that messaging to notify residents. And we'll share updates as well.
Okay, so that will be on the Caltrans website, on Caltrans social media. So everybody can go to Caltrans media outlets and they'll be able to get the latest information there. And Captain C2, I see you're unmuted.
Yes, my apology. I am doing a couple things at once. So my apology for this. So I believe the question was, will I need a pass to assess certain neighborhoods? If so, where can I obtain one and what forms of proof to get the pass will be accepted? So we are really trying to make this easy for our residents. You can use the old green pass. You can use the pass that I know some of you recently got the LA City pass that's red. So we are trying to make this easy for you. You can use those passes. And again, you can get in at Chautauqua on PCH, or you can get in at Carbon Beach Terrace. So LAPD and I work together. They recognize the green pass and I recognize the red pass. So we're really trying to make this easy for our community. And if there are any issues at all, please reach out to me. I know I can put my email address in there. Better yet, put Sergeant Wax's email address. I'm sure he's on this call wanting to kill me right now. But we just want to make sure that your emails are addressed quickly. And this is as painless as possible during this difficult time. And Supervisor, my apology. Did I miss any other questions for law enforcement?
I know that Caltrans has indicated that they're going to centralize information about PC opening and closure on their on their website and social media, and then they ask that we amplify that. Is that the best way for people to get up to the minute information about access on PCH?
It is. It is. I know we have our Caltrans family here. PCH is a state highway by or with Caltrans, so they are going to have the most updated information. And what we in government like to do is one thing called one message. So you'll notice that on my social media, we just reposted Caltrans's announcement of opening PCH to residents and to essential workers. So we try to just do one message. That way we're all consistent across the board.
And this access is allowed for both residents and contractors?
Yes.
Great.
So we are working through all that.
Okay, last time someone had a pass where they were allowed to go to their home through the PCH, but they were forced to go the long way on the way out, even though contractors were still allowed to be on PCH both ways. Is that going to happen again? Have we worked out those details so that way we don't run into these issues?
It should not happen again. And it shouldn't have happened in the first place. So again, LAPD and I speak every morning. Their incident commanders and I speak every morning. They are, we have people coming from all over the county or in their case, all over the city that may not be familiar with this. And this may be their first time coming to work a checkpoint. Each officer or deputy is given a flyer or an email showing them the different passes and the rules of what they should accept. But sometimes it does fall through the cracks, and I do apologize for that. We are trying to work through all those issues. I think we've kind of got through most of this, but if there's any issues, please reach out to my office.
Yeah, thank you. I know I know that you and LAPD are coordinating. I probably get about 20 to 30 text messages every morning about this. So it's important that we fix it because it's really frustrating and people are just trying to get to work and school. So thank you for doing that coordination. I know at 6 a.m. tomorrow, people will be happy that they can access the PCH again and to be able to smoothly get back to and from school, work, and their residences. Where are the checkpoints and who's running them?
Okay, so their checkpoint is, I can't give you all of LAPD's checkpoints because I think they have 27. But the ones that are in my jurisdiction, I have a checkpoint at Carbon Beach Terrace. And then I also have checkpoints that are in my canyon areas. They are residents only. It's a Las Flores Canyon, Las Flores, Payuma, and Coldwater Canyon. I said Payuma and Las Flores, Saddle Peak, Stunt Road to Tuna Canyon, and Shern from Saddle Peak Road to Payuma, and Tuna Canyon Road from Saddle Peak to PCH. So, and then of course Topanga Canyon, that area is closed. CHP has one checkpoint. We have the rest of the checkpoints, and we're also co-located with the military.
Okay, so it's important that all of you are working together with us. I know that we're also creating the opportunity for people to access permits at Malibu City Hall, to make that easier for residents as well. And so more information about that will be forthcoming. I know I'll be sharing on our social media, and it sounds like Caltrans will continue to keep us informed about PCH, and we'll work with our sheriff's department to make sure that that information is getting shared too. All right.
Supervisor, I just want to clarify one thing that went out on the social media, and I know Caltrans is on this line. Maybe they can help me out with this. On the social media, it said Malibu residents. Just remember, it's residents that are in the Palisades burn area. What we don't want to do is we don't want all the Malibu residents using this as trying to get, to and from Santa Monica, because work is still being done. And so we want to keep as many people off that road as we can so that work can get done and we can get prepared for the next rain event.
And I know we're desperately trying to get our kids to school. There were issues with the school buses again today. So we're hoping this reopening allows our young people easier access to schools. So thank you for that clarification. We're going to switch gears and go back to Cal Recycle now. Thank you for that. Today is fire debris accepted at the list of chosen landfill recycling facilities. Has it been accepted before, and were specific approvals required?
So yeah, I'm not familiar with what that list is. I can tell you that fire debris, the list I have says fire debris is tentatively scheduled to go to the Simi Valley landfill, the El Sobrante landfill, the Calabasas landfill, and the Sunshine Canyon landfill. I can say that with respect to the Calabasas landfill, with the Woolsey fire disaster, the debris from the Woolsey fire was taken to the Calabasas landfill safely.
Okay, and so what material are you proposing to send to these landfills and recycling facilities, and is it toxic?
So I can speak to the material going to the landfills. The material going to the landfill is going to be ash and debris, and that material, I don't want to refer to it as toxic. It's disaster-related debris. I refer to it as a waste that has constituents of concern that needs to be handled very carefully, as you can see by the health advisories that are going out. And that waste is properly wetted, sealed, transported, and taken directly to the landfill. We feel that's the safest manner that there is. It's been used since 2007. And we think that that minimizes the risks presented by that waste as it moves through those communities and is disposed of at the landfill.
Yeah, I know Colonel Swenson's on here, and he's been our expert in really helping us understand exactly what their process is. Colonel Swenson, can you, is Mr. Minderman's characterization accurate? Is there anything else that you all are doing with regard to how you're packaging up that debris?
Yeah, thanks, Supervisor. So we take great precautions to make sure that we minimize and eliminate any dust as part of our operations, and we take great care to make sure that we protect our employees who operate in the ash footprint where this fire ash and debris is removed from, and by extension, we protect the public health. So every truck that leaves one of our sites, one of the residential parcels that we're working on, that is loaded with fire ash and debris, it is loaded into thick black plastic liner, which is then folded over and sealed, and then we put the tarp for the truck down on top of it. That seals all of that in there. Now, as I've said in previous of these calls, we do this in what we call the wet method. So all of the ash and debris is wet before we scoop it and put it in the back of the truck, and it stays in that same wet consistency for its transit to the final destination, which is that permitted landfill that Wes had referred to earlier. Once it gets there, then the landfill operator receives it, as they do all municipal waste, ensuring that dust is maintained. So we're confident that our procedures secure the fire ash and debris and safely transport it to its final destination in that permitted landfill.
Yeah, we know you have a lot of experience doing this, and our Department of Public Works is coordinating how that's all happening. I know you are leading the effort on phase 2 in terms of actually removing that debris and hauling it to the landfills, but Public Works has a role to play in terms of identifying for you which landfills are licensed by the state. I think you're going to work with them on haul routes as well. And so can I turn to Public Works on the role that you're playing here with regard to how this material is being transported to landfills?
Hi, good evening. Sid Tesoro here with Public Works. So in terms of us coordinating with Army Corps on the haul roads, I guess is the question you're asking. We have met regularly and continue to meet regularly with Army Corps as to determine out what routes they're going to take on the surface streets, and eventually what routes they take on the freeways to get to their to the landfill sites.
And I know that in speaking with Supervisor Barger earlier today, you have clearly mapped those out for the Eaton fire burn area. Do you have those routes clearly mapped out for the Palisades burn area as well?
I'll let Colonel Swenson, talk about the exactness of those haul roads as it goes through the different parts of Palisades fire area. But to a certain amount of degree, the answer is yeah. We've mapped out most of the main roads through the Palisades area.
Colonel Swenson, is there anything you
Yes.
want to add?
Yeah, Supervisor, thanks. We do have a route to every landfill that's been identified, that's, permitted to take the type of waste stream, debris stream that we have to dispose of on these parcels. Obviously, like most LA residents or those who transit these streets and thoroughfares, we're subject to traffic accidents and the same conditions. So, we give the crews sort of the destination. They know what the origination point is. We give them the routes, and then we allow those trucks to move there in a fast way, is the fastest, safest way they can. I think what's just important to recognize here is that we're on a time clock to get this fire ash and debris safely removed from these streets, from this uncontrolled environment, across, say, 14,000 parcels in both fire impacted areas, or somewhere near 6,000 plus parcels in the Palisades fire impacted area. We want to get it there as quickly and safely as we can, and we want to get that truck back so we can take another load to that final destination, whether it be a landfill or a recycling center. So that's really the sort of the methodology we use. And I kind of say in general terms, we're looking to go from a local road to a county road to a state road to a federal highway as fast as we can. That's sort of the progression we're trying to get to, so that we can leave these residential areas and smaller roads and get onto the larger highways that are designed to take these larger vehicles.
I appreciate that, and I think residents' concerns really are around, some of what we heard with regard to the questions in the PCH. We're traversing difficult circumstances already. They just want to make sure that we're working in a coordinated fashion, and the more that Public Works coordinates with you, I think the easier it will be for all of our neighbors and all of you to navigate these streets. So it's our desire for that to be in cooperation with one another. So thank you for highlighting that. I know that Mr. Minderman highlighted the role that Department of Public Works Public Health plays from the county perspective for the LEA, for the local enforcement agency, and so they're authorized by the state, but it is our county Department of Public Health which is answerable to the state in that effort. So, Dr. Quick, if you could, can you speak to whether the debris that is going to these landfills is toxic, and what the LEA is doing to make sure that landfills are not receiving toxic material, and to make sure our neighborhoods are protected?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And let me talk a little bit about maybe some distinction between public health and a lot of our warnings that are coming out. We do have a public health advisory related to those that reside within 250 yards of fire debris. On any town hall you hear any of us speak at, we do talk about the potential hazards associated with folks coming into contact with ash and debris. And I want to be very clear that there's a distinction between us saying, potential toxins and contaminants that can be found in ash, soot, and fire debris from the definition of hazardous waste from a waste management perspective. And so there is a distinction between that. And as you've heard folks talk about on here, and I'm certainly not the best one to talk about it, but I will reiterate, the phase 1 cleanup gets rid of the household hazardous waste as defined in that manner. And then you've heard, I think in pretty good detail tonight, about management of some of the potential exposure risks associated with phase 2. So that waste stream going into a landfill and the potential contact with the public is something that I think is being spoken to for many of these other agencies. And I want to make, again, that distinction when public health is talking about the potential risks associated with the fire debris and ash and soot, we're talking about public contacting those in cleanup activities or in their homes, and we want folks to take precautions on that, but that is a different definition than this hazardous material and hazardous waste as related to the waste streams.
Okay, so that phase 1 is the household hazardous, that's the asbestos, and that's going to only designated sites that are allowed to take that material, as I heard earlier. But what you're talking about in terms of phase 2 and what the designated landfills are taking is something that is not toxic in terms of going into the landfills after it's collected by Army Corps?
So as far as the potential, we don't want the public interacting without proper personal protective equipment with fire debris, ash, and soot, because there are potentials for contaminants in there. You've heard us talk about heavy metals, other things that may be in there. It can be an irritant to eyes. So those are all those recommendations we have for folks interacting with it, such as covering up, mask, goggles, and so forth. But that's a distinction from the hazardous waste and where that can go as a waste stream coming out. So I think it's been outlined on this, and I'll say it again, based on the debris, disaster debris, that disaster debris as kind of described on how that is wrapped up, wrapped up, transported, put into a landfill in, I'd say in accordance with certain types of landfills that have liners and a leachate collection system. That process is how phase 2 is sort of determined through all of these agencies. There's multiple agencies involved with that, and want to make the distinction of when we're talking to folks about the potential hazards associated with individuals contacting and coming in contact with this ash, soot, and fire debris.
So you said a lot, but I want to make sure I distill it so people really got it. So when it's out and uncontrolled and people can directly interact with it, that's a danger. And that's why we're asking people to wear PPE. It's why we're asking them to wear these masks and take all of the precautions that public health has been advising. But we know our Army Corps partners are packaging this up as the Colonel described and making sure that all of that debris is contained within that packaging. And then it is being transported to only designated landfills that have been identified as licensed by the state and with the proper lining and constructed in the manner that you described. So to put it bluntly, is it safe for this debris to go to landfills?
I think one thing I want to offer here, that was a great characterization that you just offered, and one other piece of that I think came out a little bit earlier that's critical. It is in everybody's interest to get this debris out of the communities and into an accepting facility per the regulations, and that is everybody's goal, to get it out of potential contact with the public. So yes, that is what our goal is, I think, uniformly amongst the agencies.
Okay, so it's safe for this to go to, it's not only important for us to collect it out of our communities as quickly as possible because we don't want it loose and uncontrolled, but it's also important that we follow the Army Corps process because that is how it will be safely disposed of and contained at a landfill.
Correct. I would say following the process that you've heard outlined by these agencies that do this across the state and in fact across the country, following those processes that are put into place with those safety measures is critical for correctly, processing this debris from the community and getting it into a facility and out of contact with the public.
Great. And since I know CalRecycle works with the licensing for these landfills, I just want to hear your confirmation that that's what you expect to be happening in terms of operations at these landfills, that's the kind of debris that you have determined is acceptable to be disposed of at these landfills.
Right, yes, not just CalRecycle, but the other state agencies involved in the permitting and operation of those landfills. We've determined that with respect to state disaster-related debris and how it's being handled, it's consistent with previous disaster responses. And this is the safest manner to get it out of the uncontrolled condition and into the disposal facility as safely and as quickly as possible.
So this has been done before. This is how we're doing it again, according to best practices. This is what is the safest and best option for our communities who have been impacted by these fires.
Correct.
Okay. And so I'm going to now go to who is responsible for monitoring, approvals, and oversight regarding the debris disposal process. I know we all have a different hand in it, and I think this has been a difficult question for our residents who are sort of trying to say, like, who's the person in charge? And I think that what we have in our conversations really surfaced is that we all have a role to play. So I'd like to start with Cal OES in terms of the role that you play in terms of monitoring, approvals, and oversight.
Thanks, Supervisor. So as I stated in my opening remarks, Cal OES's role is coordinating the response and the recovery through the Emergency Services Act and the California's we're able to, as part of Governor's office, bring to bear the appropriate state agencies and wrap around that disaster. In this case, we worked with FEMA, set up the Joint Field Office, brought Cal Recycle to the table, Department of Toxic Substances Control, a lot of host of other agencies to bear to work on this problem set. So that's how we coordinate this area. I hope that helps answer your question.
Yes, and I know Army Corps has a role to play in this oversight and monitoring as well. So what is the role that Army Corps is playing in making sure that we are having a safe phase 2 process?
Yeah, thanks, Supervisor, for the question. So the Army Corps of Engineers is the contract agent for this cleanup effort under the authority of FEMA and under the authority of California and their request. So I have every crew that's on every one of my crews that's doing debris removal that's on the streets of these 2 fire impacted areas is overseen by one of my employees who works directly for me. And we ensure that the contractor is doing everything that they're supposed to do by this federal contract to safely remove the debris. Additionally, I have safety personnel who are embedded with our contractor safety and ensure that that the contractor is enforcing all of the safety requirements and the accident and hazard plan that's part of this federal contract to ensure that everything from the safety of how we use the wet method to capture the fire ash and debris on each parcel and put it safely in a vehicle to be transported to the final destination, but also that our vehicles are driving at the right speeds, that we're following all local traffic laws, that we're not putting the public at a higher risk by us being there. So all of that we are in charge of, and we coordinate that on a daily basis through a series, through our hierarchical system, and I sit at the top of that.
Okay. And Dr. Quick, I know that the LEA is the agency locally that is responsible for monitoring and making sure that that we're having a safe condition, that we're following all of the protocols that have been outlined by the state. I know you don't get those directives from me or the Board of Supervisors. So what are your directives? What is your charge as the public health's relationship with the LEA? And how will you be doing ongoing monitoring to make sure that these issues are addressed and that we have safe conditions in all of and following all of the rules that the state has outlined?
Sure. Thank you for that. I probably will ask Shikari to answer part of that. She is our expert from LEA, but I do want to offer one component of this that I think is important at this point. With any of the temporary waivers that have put into place, the LEA does have inspectors that go out and can inspect and make sure that the operator is following what is outlined as far as potentially amount of operating hours or any of those other conditions. But I'll see if in general, if Shikari would like to add any details on the LEA and as far as its oversight of regulation. She is definitely our expert locally and can speak just probably really briefly on that for everyone.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Quick. Good evening. My name is Shikari Nakagawa Ota. I'm in charge of the LA County Local Enforcement Agency, LEA. So we conduct a site inspection, and we would observe, each incoming and outgoing load. We make sure the operator keeps an accurate record so we can monitor the amount of debris coming in. And we do have a requirement for the operator to submit the 90-day report to summarize the activity associated with the acceptance of the disaster debris. And the operator is required to provide that report every night.
Uh-oh, you went back on mute.
Sorry about that.
That's
and at the site, we make sure that dust control is in place. And at the end of the day, that the daily cover is adequately applied. And starting time and closing time and permitted tonnage is not exceeded. As you all know, there is a emergency waiver being approved by the LEA. So we would monitor to see the operator will stay within that parameters. Thank you.
Okay. And I know that there have been a lot of questions around this, and it's really helpful to have the LEA represented here tonight, because one of the biggest questions we get is, what are the ongoing protections or measures that are put in place or will be put in place to ensure long-term safety for the surrounding communities? I think this is of utmost concern. We know you have the responsibility in terms of making sure that all of what is outlined in state law is how it's actually happening on the ground. That's why LEAs were created. And so how are you doing that? How are you making sure our neighborhoods are safe?
So as was mentioned earlier, there are state minimum standards the landfill operator is required to comply with. So our site inspector makes sure that all those state minimum standards are being met from safety and also the operation criteria and daily cover, load checking, what comes in, what goes out, and how the traffic on site is being monitored for the safe disposal and record keeping of what the operator did with the incoming waste and how much was diverted, how much was recycled, how much was disposed at the landfill.
So
And
I see
Supervisor,
you.
I would
Yeah.
only add that, not only is the day-to-day operations monitored at the landfill, but in terms of the long-term risk, and how it's managed, this waste is going into a lined cell, which is monitored. The groundwater is monitored to protect, to ensure that there's no leaks from this debris. The debris is covered daily with soil to ensure that there's no emissions from the debris after it's disposed. And then the landfill will be closed in accordance with the requirements at that time. And then it will be monitored for 30 years and beyond after its closure to ensure that this waste is contained and does not, pose a threat to the public or the environment.
I think thank you. It's really helpful to hear that. We haven't had everybody together. And I think, in people's minds, there's a person in charge and they tell somebody, and then this person does it. And I think what I'm hearing here is that there are state policies in place that govern how the landfill was created in the first place. And within that landfill, there are protective measures that were taken. So that way, when this debris is deposited, not only is the way it's packaged safe, but also that lining in the landfill is also a component that helps to keep people safe. And then we have this agency locally that works through the county's Department of Public Health. We play all kinds of roles at the county, even though the county doesn't give these the county board doesn't give these directives. Our county department is working to make sure that it is enforced at the local level through our LEA. So it takes all of us to make this work. All right, I see agreement on that, so that's what I'm going to go with. Our next question is, who decides that the debris is non-hazardous or non-toxic, and what is the process for making that determination? Can we get a definition of toxic and hazardous to share with the community? So I know that we've been tripped up on some of our languaging, and that doesn't help with the confusion that's happened. So who decides whether the debris is non-hazardous or non-toxic? And can we explain for people what is toxic, where that's going, or toxic or hazardous, and what is non-hazardous, non-toxic, and how we determine that? Maybe I'll start with Army Corps. Colonel Swenson, are you there? Okay, I'll come back to him. Mr. Mitterman, can you help us understand from the state's perspective in terms of licensing how we're addressing these different kinds of materials?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, there's two primary agencies in the state that classify waste. One is the Department of Toxic Substances Control, and the other is the State Water Resources Control Board. And those definitions are specified in just volumes of regulations on what classifications and what types of waste meet those requirements. I would say, again, I'll go back to the general order for disaster-related debris, is that we consider this disaster-related debris. It's a prescriptive description. It says this waste from this area, as long as it's handled in this way, in this manner, and goes to these specific facilities, that's how we have to handle this waste. That's the classification. It's just disaster-related debris. As the Colonel mentioned, the hazardous materials, the household hazardous materials are removed. The asbestos is removed to the extent practicable. We handle it in a specific way and it goes to a specific facility.
Okay, Colonel, you want to add to that?
No, I think Wes hit that one, hit the nail on the head on that one. I mean, we characterize it as fire ash and debris. It's classified for this type of landfill facility that we're taking it to, and that's what we work with the county. As the Corps of Engineers comes in with our contractor, we work with local experts who understand how municipal waste, how fire ash and debris is properly treated and disposed and classified here, and then we work with Cal Recycle to understand what that universe looks like of places we can take it, and then we do our job, which is to get it to minimize or have zero dust, get it into properly lined trucks, use the wet method, monitor the air quality around the sites that we're working, and then get it to that permanent facility for the experts that work there to take it to the final destination, which is as Wes indicated, under debris, under clean dirt each night, under the wet method at this facility, so that nothing escapes into the air and it's properly stored for decades.
And what I think I heard from Dr. Quick earlier is that when it's this dry ash that's uncontrolled, that's out in our environments, that once again, that can be hazardous without using the proper PPE. But what helps then is the wet method that the Army Corps uses to collect this debris, to package it up, and the way that it is packaged and contained, and then the way that it is transported to the landfill, and the lining that's within the landfill itself protects the surrounding area and keeps it safe. Have I got that correct?
You have that correct.
Okay.
And Supervisor, I would only add too that the modern waste management units that we have now, as they're designed with what we call these composite liners, there's very little difference between a Class 3 facility that handles municipal solid waste and this disaster-related debris and a Class 1 unit that handles hazardous waste. They both have composite liners. They both are monitored. They both have leak detection. So, I want to say they're very close in terms of how protective they are of public health and safety in the environment.
Okay, but just to be clear, that phase 1 isn't going to just any landfill in Los Angeles County. It's going to spaces that are specifically designed and licensed and regulated to accept that debris.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's important because people, we've been talking about how this debris is hazardous to people's health. I think it's understandable that people are concerned when we're telling them to put on all this PPE before they go back to their properties. They're getting the message that it is not safe. So how could it then, just because it's packaged up, be safe? And what I hear you saying is the method in how it's collected, the method in how it's packaged, the method in how it's transported, and the method in where it and how it is contained within a properly licensed landfill is all contribute to what keep everybody safe.
Correct.
Okay. So how can we be certain that accepting this will not worsen odor issues at certain selected landfills? I know that this has been an ongoing issue at some of our landfills, odor for our surrounding communities. So I'm going to start with Public Works.
Yeah, good evening. So again, Supervisor, we'll go back to the process of how it's being encapsulated or packaged, as folks are saying, and then how it's delivered to the landfill, and how at the end of each day, it's covered with soil on top of that, so that, as Wes had mentioned, that whole process prevents the release of what could be potential odor causing elements. And I'll turn it to Wes to explain a little bit probably could explain that better than I can.
No, so, well, yeah, I completely understand the question. So, this debris, again, through the wet method, through the encapsulation, is exposed for a very short period of time because it's been burned. And I've been at landfills that are in the process of taking this debris. There really aren't odors associated with the disaster-related debris. It's also done in a separate area from where the normal municipal solid waste operations are done. There's no mixing or co-mingling of that operation. It's unfortunate that some landfills do have odor issues related with their operations, but the way the system is designed, the taking of the disaster-related debris should not impact the municipal solid waste operations. So there should be no exacerbation of the odor issues.
And since we know this role that the LEA plays in terms of enforcement and having monitors, I want to turn to our representative for the LEA, Ms. Shikari, if you might be able to jump back on. How can we make sure that there won't be odor issues or other issues at some of these landfills? I know that you've been monitoring and working on those issues. So how are we making sure that we're not making things worse?
So in terms of the cover in the operational control, dust control in the cover, and also making sure that odorous loads, if there may be, would be handled swiftly, meaning, they don't have to wait until the end of the day, they can put the cover on it. So there are different methods the landfill operator can use. But when it comes to odor issue at the landfill, since LEA is not the lead agency, we refer it to AKMD, South Coast AKMD, and work with them. So they can come up with different methods or system that operator can utilize at the site.
Okay, so LEA is the agency that will then work with AQMD. Do we have anyone from AQMD on here tonight?
Yes, we do, Supervisor.
I see you. There you are. So can you talk to us about how you will work with the LEA to prevent and enforce on any potential odor issues?
Yes, absolutely. And so I'm Terrence Mann. I'm the head of enforcement at South Coast AQMD. If you've ever called in an air quality complaint and dealt with an inspector, that person works for me. And so one of the areas within our jurisdiction is landfills. And so we regulate basically air emissions that come out of them. So they have landfill gas collection systems, things like that. We permit those systems. Also just any kind of odors, trash odors, or anything else that may come out. That's within our jurisdiction. And so, this is a special concern for us. And so, as has been said, refuse, fire debris is not going to just go into the working phase. It's not just going to be thrown in and mixed in. The burrito wrap that you're hearing about is going to go to a separate area and be treated differently. One of our concerns, and something we're going to be watching very closely, is we don't want that to mean that any landfill stops paying attention to its principal mission at the working phase. Adequate watering, gas collection, all the other things that it needs to do to keep it safe, prevent odors, and that sort of thing. We don't want them to lose focus. And so our inspectors will be conducting unannounced inspections. We will be, of course, responding to complaints. So if anyone experiences that kind of thing, you can always contact us at 1-800-CUT-SMOG or access our web portal or our mobile app. But we will respond to complaints, we will conduct inspections, and we will take appropriate enforcement action to make sure that the landfills maintain their focus as they should.
And is there something specific that's done as a preventative measure? I'm hearing very clearly that you're ready to jump on anybody who isn't doing what they're supposed to and creating issues. But is there anything specifically that's done to prevent odor issues?
The odor issues are generally coming from either the working phase, so trash, it needs to be disposed of in the right way during the right time frame, as you heard earlier, covered with like a layer of soil, for example. Each landfill is a little different. All those work practices need to be followed to the letter. In addition, some of the landfills Some of your constituents certainly know have issues with their gas collection systems where they may get waterlogged or they may need repairs or those kinds of things. And so in terms of preventative, we need to make sure those repairs, those work practices are being handled every single day in the same way, that they normally would be. That nobody takes a week off, for example, because they're paying attention to this new refuse that's coming in. We want to make sure that all resources that are required are being devoted to this effort by the landfills.
Okay, I really appreciate that clarity. I know that we've heard a lot. We've heard a lot from our communities about their concerns regarding this debris and it being transported and eventually disposed of in our landfills. What would happen if we didn't dispose of this debris in these landfills? What is there risk to our community? What is the consequence of us not accepting this debris, which is permitted at these licensed facilities? What would be the consequence of that? So I think I want to start with Army Corps and then I'll go from there.
Yeah, so if we fail to collect this fire ash and debris in a timely manner, then we're just leaving the fire ash and debris exposed to the environment where it can mix with rain and enter the stormwater system, which ultimately runs down to the ocean. And if it stays in a dry climate here as we exit the rainy season and enter the more dry season with high winds, it'll be picked up in the environment. And that's another, we don't want to expose people to just an increased amount of dust in the air. So that's to me is the greater harm. And that's why we are going as fast as we can. I think that's why our nation has, and the administration unleashed additional resources to help EPA essentially triple their workforce so they could get done going from 90 days down to 30 days, which they are doing. And I think just shaving the time off, my time off, having the ROE deadline to sort of force people into this program sooner so that they can make a decision and we can get this debris cleaned up, all supports sort of the argument that we need to get rid of this fire ash and debris. We got to take it from an uncontrolled environment on somewhere in the order of 13,000+ parcels to a very select number of locations where it can be in a controlled environment, whether that's a landfill that's permitted by Cal Recycle or a recycling center where these items such as green waste or recyclable concrete or metal can re-enter the supply chain and come back with a new life later on and not be put into a landfill. That's what we need to do. We need to do it as quickly. I'd argue we need to do it as quickly as we safely can. And that is what the Army Corps of Engineers and our colleagues at the EPA are absolutely committed to.
Okay, Dr. Quick, what are some of the health risks if we aren't quickly moving this debris from an uncontrolled environment to the controlled manner we've been talking about?
Sure. So, and I think the Colonel did a great job of highlighting the longer that it stays in communities or in burned areas adjacent to places where folks are living right now, the more risk there is for the public to interact with this, ash, soot, and fire debris. And I will reiterate that public health has put out guidance related to potential risk of exposure to this fire debris and the potential increase chance of having symptoms related to that exposure if you're within 250 yards of that. We've also mentioned that for some folks, it may be advisable to stay out of the area where active phase 1 and phase 2 is taking place. And that would mean the longer that this debris sits there, the longer that process takes and that risk could exist there. I also agree that as we get wind events, that potentially you could get redistribution of this ash, soot, and fire debris. And that's something we don't want to have happen. We want folks to be able to clean up, their property if you're adjacent to a burn area with the hopes that getting to the source of this will go away. Also agree with the the redistribution that happens when we have rainstorms. So we do know that this debris washes into waterways, ends up in our ocean. We're doing active monitoring of that. But the ultimate goal is to clean this debris up and get it away from folks as soon as possible.
Okay, and one more question regarding the issues surrounding the landfill specifically. What are the safeguards for protecting air and water quality surrounding landfills as part of our oversight process? I know AQMD is with us as well as a representative from our water board. So perhaps I'll start with AQMD.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Lum, the Deputy Executive Officer, lead of the Air Monitoring Analysis Division at South Coast AQMD. So we've conducted an expanded air monitoring effort, not specifically at landfills, but we have done a extensive mobile monitoring effort in the Eaton and Palisades area to look for air toxics, specifically metals and gaseous air toxics. To evaluate whether or not there are elevated levels of pollutants coming up from repopulation, debris cleanup efforts, etc. In addition, there's a second step to our process where we're deploying stationary air monitors at up to 5 locations between the 2 sites. And they'll be looking for air toxic metals, as well as asbestos, PM10 or particulate matter, 10 and PM2.5. So with those efforts, what we're looking at is a neighborhood scale type of monitoring. Sorry, get some drink. And that is looking at overall community exposure for the neighborhood for all the debris activities. Some of these are located near the staging area, specifically the Will Rogers beach site. And then provide that data on our website so people can see the data. The PM data will be in real time, and the metals data and asbestos data will be about 1 week later. Excuse me. To be able to be viewed and assessed with our public health partners at the LADPH, as well as the California Department of Public Health, and also our partners at the California Air Resources Board. So what the idea is that we're looking at the air quality of all these activities to see if there's any concern coming up from the repopulation efforts and the debris cleanup efforts. And if we see something in the data, then we can follow it to potentially other locations.
I know there were concerns raised about whether everything that you're measuring and monitoring is inclusive of risk of all the risks that exist. So can you talk a little bit about, how what you're testing addresses what are often the concerns and risks that that people might consider given the set of circumstances that we're dealing with?
Right. So I'm looking at from previous wildfires, especially when you have the kind of wildfire with the urban burning landscape. Some of the concerns revolve around the metals. You've heard a lot of that talking about for the water quality as well as the soil quality and substance in there. So what we're looking for is any of that debris and ash, like you mentioned, being resuspended into the air and that can get into the kind of breathable aspect. I think one thing that Dr. Quick had mentioned in the past is that, as far as the air is concerned, the inhalation risk for these particles is probably of the higher concern. And that's why we're looking for those air toxics specifically in our air monitoring. And then, of course, asbestos, just being in the debris, we're looking for that as well to make sure that, we're able to assess that in the neighborhood.
Great. And I know we have a representative from our water board on here. Can we also hear from a water perspective? How are we, what safeguards are in place to protect our water? How are you addressing that and monitoring that?
Sure. Hi, Supervisor Horvath. I'm Jenny Newman with the LA Water Board. So the LA Water Board requires any landfill that's going to accept waste from disaster-related debris to have a permit with us, a special permit for acceptance of disaster-related waste. That permit prohibits the acceptance of hazardous waste. And hazardous waste is defined in California code, but I just thought I'd pull up our permit has a more plain language definition. So our permit says waste such as paint cans, gas cans, solvents, poisons, household cleaners, drums with unknown contents, electronic waste, refrigerators, or any potentially hazardous waste other than ash from fire disaster areas are prohibited from being discharged. So that's one layer of how we protect. Also, these landfills already have, before they even are allowed to accept this waste, permits with our agency, and the permits require the landfills to have landfill liners, leachate collection systems, to prevent leachate from the landfill from reaching groundwater or getting out of the landfill and running off into surface water. And then our permits also have groundwater monitoring requirements. And the landfill operators have to monitor the groundwater frequently. They submit the results to the regional board. We review the results, compare them against standards. If there's any exceedances of standards, then we require the landfill to take corrective action. We also, like the local enforcement agency does, we go on site inspections to make sure that those liner systems were constructed properly in the first place. And we inspect them again before any waste is allowed to be put in them. We also inspect to make sure the landfill is operating properly under our stormwater authority. So we're out there all the time inspecting, and we have monitoring requirements and permit prohibitions to protect water quality.
I think it's safe to say that it would have been helpful for all of us to get together in advance of, us getting into phase two, because I think we've answered a lot of questions that are critical to people understanding how there are regulations in place, how monitoring is happening, and how we are working as a collective to protect people's safety. So I really appreciate the answers that have been shared here with regard to the landfills. I know it doesn't include every single question that's ever been asked. I don't think we can do that possibly tonight, but I do think that it's been incredibly helpful for us to understand how much is in place as it relates to safety of landfills and the surrounding community. And I know that there are people who will remain concerned despite all of the answers that we've given tonight. So between CalRecycle and the LEA, if people have concerns about what they are seeing with regard to the landfill in their neighborhood, where should they call? What should they do? I know that there isn't sort of one person who's in charge of all of the things. So what is the enforcement mechanism from a local person's perspective, from a resident's perspective? If they see, normally when you see something suspicious, you see something, say something, they call law enforcement. How does that work with the landfill? Where do you call? What do who do you reach out to?
That's a good question, Supervisor. I would say if there's a concern with the operation of the landfill, the best contact would be the local enforcement agency, the LA County Department of Public Health, to at least intake that complaint and then either act on it or refer it to the proper agency. That would be under the assumption that the most likely complaint would be with respect to the day-to-day operation of the landfill.
Okay, and so Shikari, are you able to share with us a telephone number, a website, an email, a something, so people know how they reach the LEA if they have any concerns, questions, they're observing something that is concerning? How do they report it?
Yes, so we have a website where complaint can be filed on the LA County Public Health, Environmental Health. If you go to a solid waste or landfill, there will be a page. And also you can call the main line of the LEA. It's 626-430-5540. 626-430-5540. And we do have a main email, swmp@ph.lacounty.gov.
Okay. And I know that it's incredibly helpful for people to have that contact information. God forbid we end up in a bad situation where people are reporting something that is very concerning to you. What do you do? What steps would you take to make sure that you as the enforcing agency are protecting communities?
So once we receive complaints, we make sure that that is within our purview. Then we will send the inspector out to conduct a complaint investigation. And also we would check in with the operator check their monitoring records, and also monitoring reports that they are supposed to submit to the LEA. And if we determine that the complaint is outside of a legal purview, we make a referral to AQMD for any air quality related issue, including odor. And if it's related to leachate or storm drain, surface runoff, we make a referral to the water board. So we have been working together with these agencies, and also we reach out to CalRecycle for any technical guidance or how to resolve certain issue that require some technical expertise.
Okay, and Dr. Quick, I know in speaking with Dr. Ferrer earlier today, she said that the Department of Public Health would work with LEA to have proactive monitoring as well, that it's not just going to be responsive to complaints, but that there will be proactive monitoring from the Department of Public Health. Do I have that correct? I know people can hear it from me, but I think it's helpful to hear from the department that that's actually what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. The plan is to have proactively have LEA inspectors out for the facilities that have gotten these temporary waivers to just ensure that they're operating within the sort of agreed upon operating hours and so forth.
That's helpful to hear as well. Okay, so we're now going to shift to questions specifically with regard to the debris removal process. So next, where can I find the application for a permit for an opt-out contractor? I'm going to go to Public Works on that.
Thank you. So the first place you want to go to is recovery.lacounty.gov. So that's where you start, and you can get all sorts of information about the opt-in and opt-out permits.
Okay, so but this is specific to if someone is opting out, they've already gotten the form, they've decided that they're going to opt out, and now they need to start getting permits for their contractors to do that debris removal now that they've opted out. Where do they go to get that information?
Right. You can apply for a permit from the county in Epic, LA, to handle the debris removal for those people that have chose to opt out of the program and take it upon themselves to do, or have a contractor do the work.
Okay, you said Epic LA. I'm not the most tech savvy person, so that sounds like I might need a login. It's a special portal. Like, can you explain to me what Epic LA is? How does one use it? What should people expect and with that portal and as they're interacting with it?
Yeah, so you would go to epicla.lacounty.gov. That will get you in there. So if you've used Epic LA before, there's a program that you have to apply for permits. If you have an existing login, you would have you could use your existing login. But if you're let me replace that. If you're new and a returning user, you got to register to use the upgraded login process for Epic LA. Then once you get in there, we have a step-by-step guide on how to register, on how to register, and all that information can be found at epicla.lacounty.gov.
So I'm hearing you say it's probably user friendly. You have to you have to create an identity in this portal, and that account will track all of the requests that you make while you're using the Epic LA portal.
Yep, that's pretty much it. We try to make it as user friendly, one stop as possible.
And if somebody goes on to Epic LA and they are just totally confused, who do they call? How do they reach somebody to help them?
The best place to do for that, if you're on Epic LA and have questions about it, give us a call on our fire debris hotline at 844-347-3332.
Okay, and has the process for issuing phase 2 rebuilding permits begun? If not, when will that start?
I'll let Kira talk about the rebuilding process.
Okay.
Hi. Yes, people can apply for applications online now. So LA County is committed to providing expedited services for fire rebuilds. Certain type of projects are going to move very quickly on an accelerated timeline, such as like-for-like rebuilds, rebuilding the home in the same or very similar location that they had prior to the wildfires. And so more complex projects might take a little bit of additional review and approvals, but they will still be expedited by dedicated staff. But again, you can apply online now. And again, we have information on that same recovery.lacounty.gov/rebuilding. And we have information on temporary housing and like for like and rebuilds.
And so that's for our unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County. You're also supporting the city of Malibu and their rebuilds.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, that's for the unincorporated county. And we do also have links on the recovery.lacounty.gov website to the city.
So for our residents in Malibu or in Los Angeles proper, they would go to their respective planning departments, and any related component to Public Works, they'll then work with you.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, I know we are aiming to end tonight a little bit earlier than some of our other town halls. So I want to thank you all for spending this time with us tonight, for answering all of these questions and helping to provide clarity. Is there contact information that you can share if folks want to follow up or they have additional questions? I'm going to start with Army Corps.
My card in my hand, which has our call center number on it, but I'll get it. I'll put it. Here it is. It's 213-308-8305. I'll say that one more time. 213-308-8305. You could also reach out to us at SoCal Wildfires, all one word, at USACE, USACE.army.mil. Or you could flag one of my teammates down in the street wearing a red shirt, or everyone seems to know how to find me. Even though I'm in camouflage. But people still find me. And any of my military members that are out there on the ground in uniform can answer any questions. And we look forward to having those exchanges with your constituents.
Thank you so
and
much.
Our partners.
Cal OES.
Thank you, Supervisor. So my team dropped in to the chat for everybody. Legislative affairs at caloes.ca.gov is the quickest way to get to us, and we will promptly get back to you with any questions that you have. Thank you so much for letting us be here.
Thank you. Cal Recycle.
Yeah. Questions can be forwarded to opa@calrecycle.ca.gov, and I will pop that in the chat as well.
All right. And is that a website or an email address?
That's an email address. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Public Works.
Yeah, so the best way to answer questions is give us a call on our fire debris hotline at 844-347-3332. But you could also find questions, questions to answer, questions to some of the answers to some of the questions asked at recovery.lacounty.gov.
All right.
And if I may, Supervisor, just residents of LA County unincorporated areas can visit the Calabasas One-Stop Center to meet with LA County representatives, including planning, public works, fire, public health, and you can schedule a workshop with you and or your design professional now to receive individual property information and to aid in the preparation of your rebuild plans and to streamline the rebuilding process. So you can book your appointment at recovery.lacounty.gov/rebuilding/workshops.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public health.
The best way to reach via phone is our public health info line, and that phone number is 833-540-0473. Also encourage folks to go to Recovery LA website, and there's a link there to public health. We do have a lot of FAQs for different individuals in different circumstances related to the fire, but that's the phone number that you can reach us at.
Okay. Our LEA, can you share your contact information once again so people know how to reach you?
Sure. The phone number is 626-430-5540, 626-430-5540. And the main program email address is swmp@ph.lacounty.gov.
All right. AQMD?
So we have a dedicated email for this event, wildfire liaison at aqmd.gov. I think it's been dropped in the chat. Also, if someone doesn't remember that, you can always go to our website, aqmd.gov. There's a wildfire banner, and that information and a lot of other things are there on our website.
All right. Rob, I know we didn't really get to you today, but I know you've been a star in some of our previous town halls. How do we reach our insurance commissioner's office?
Yeah, sure. So give us a call at our 800 number at 1-800-927-4357. Visit us at insurance.ca.gov. Sign up for our consumer alerts. Just want to give everyone a heads up that Commissioner Lara sent a notice recently addressing some of the habitability concerns with insurance companies and LA County public notices of health, declaring, the areas being unsafe to live in. So definitely for those of you having concerns with your insurance company, take a look at that consumer alert. And also just want to let everyone know that we are going to be hosting another insurance workshop at the Skirball Cultural Center on March 8th, on Saturday, March 8th. And then we've got another one on March 15th at John Muir High School in Pasadena. So I encourage everyone, if you're having issues with your insurance as part of the rebuilding process, give us a call, make an appointment, or drop in. We'll meet with everyone there.
Okay, and Caltrans.
Yeah, I can drop our social links in the chat, but a phone number for general inquiries would be 213-897-1200, or an email, the letter D as in dog, the number 7, inquiries, INQUIRIES @dot.ca.gov. And I'll drop those in the chat as well.
Thank you so much. This will be archived and live on YouTube. So I know we powered through a lot of that information. So you can go back and rewatch it. We'll make sure that it is captured on our various websites to make sure that we are consolidating this information for quick access. I want to thank you all once again. I know it takes all of us to get this recovery process right. I am grateful for the partners that we have, for your expertise and all the ways that you're showing up for our residents in this recovery process. We really thank you, and have a good night.